Okay, so today I figured we could do more of just like remember that one session we did where it was like a training more than anything, where we talked about the different clients and then we talked about the different scenarios and stuff like that. I love that. I think that, and I feel like because we each have our own individual times that we talk about stuff too, that maybe it would be good to have that like, and I think we discussed this, having one session, one staff meeting is going to be about projects per month, and then one's going to be like client training. um, and I'm excited. So I think that would be a good one to jump into. We have a bunch of clients that are coming up on the end of their programs, and stuff like that. We've been talking about like kind of casually mentioning the business side of things, like CCA business coaching and stuff like that. So let's start by, who wants to go first? Just give me a rundown of how your clients have been. Anything new coming up? What's up, Juliana? Tell me about your clients.
So Becky is a lot more, I guess, oh my God, what word am I trying to find? She's a lot more invested now, I think, but she did send me her pictures starting with KGG, and she did, from where she didn't really follow the baby steps or anything during CCA, she did gain more weight back than when she started. But she did just move out of her parents' house and got her own apartment. So hopefully that will be good for her, because I think that her mom would like say comments to her and stuff like that, like when she was eating stuff. So I
That
think that's
definitely made
really
the
good for
binging
her.
probably worse. Hearing that stuff
Yeah.
from her mom probably added the fuel to the fire for the binging.
Yeah, and she was letting herself get so stressed out at her job that she was just giving in to all the sweets people were bringing in and that kind of stuff. I guess more of the binging to deal with the stress. But she's moved out, so I think that's going to be really good for her. And she was like, I asked her if she thought it was going to be easier for her eating, being on her own. She says she didn't know, because there was a lot of out to eat places near where her apartment is. And I said, well, that's okay. We can figure out what you can eat there. You just text me what you want to get. We'll go through the menu or whatever. So hopefully, fingers crossed, she's going to be
Yeah.
good.
Something big from that. Have you guys ever heard of self-fulfilling prophecy? So it's like when people become what they think society thinks they are, or they start to believe that their threshold of what they're capable to do or how good their life can be or everything is only according to this kind of like curse, like I'm doomed to be this kind of person, or I'm doomed to live this kind of life. So it's almost like on the outside you see them and you want to shake them and be like, no, you don't have to be that way. Like if you don't want to be that way, you don't have to be that way. But it's something a lot more deeply instilled in them, that it's kind of like my therapist told me about this a while ago. She worked at a high risk youth clinic, and she would work with a lot of like teen moms and runaways and stuff like that, and just people like like kids essentially in really tough situations. And she said that she thought that the second that she got there, when she was like a new therapist, she's like, I thought as soon as I got there people were going to be chomping at the bits to be changing their life or getting out of the situation that they're in, and like excited that there's this new avenue for help. She goes, no, I remember talking to people at first and I'm like, where do you see yourself in a few years? And they would literally be like, probably pregnant, at least like once, maybe a kid running around, I don't know. One said like, I'll probably be turning tricks forever, like all kinds of stuff. And it's like casually, like they're just, this is my life, this is who I am. It's like instilled in them that like, this, I am a piece of shit and this is how my life is going to go. And it's a form of depression. But it happens a lot with binge eating, because when people get into the cycle of hating themselves for that and feeling like the lack of control, they start to reach a point where they're like, well, I'll never be any better, so why should I try? And I feel like Becky really lives that out. Like I feel
Yeah.
like she does well when people are believing in her, and she does well like when she's in those moods where she's really talkative and like keep helping us stay involved and stuff. And then I feel like she falls into this like self-fulfilled prophecy of like, well, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm always going to be living like this, and what's the point?
Yeah.
Do you notice that with her?
Yeah, I do. And I also noticed that with Lexa, because she's been definitely really difficult to talk with, because she doesn't answer texts a lot, and her dad is fixing to die, and so she's dealing with a lot of depression and stress and fear. But I did get her to do a texting session instead of a call, and that turned out really, really good, and it made her feel a lot more comfortable. And so she even said after, she was like, I might schedule an actual call next week, because she felt
Yay.
more comfortable, which was great. But she's been really difficult just because from where she is, so low income, especially with the food, that's going to be a real struggle trying to figure that out, I think. And she definitely has a lot of binging tendencies from that depression.
I think that could be something good for us to make as a resource, like a cost-effective guide to food, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of clients, like I always say, the clients who have less money are the ones who do the best, as messed up as that is, because like they truly value what they're spending that money on. They don't want to like let that go to waste, like it's the clients who just don't give a shit and just like, yeah, here, pocket change. Those are the ones that we're typically trying to chase down. Like, you think I love paid in fulls? I worry whenever I have a client on a paid in full, because I'm like, do they care? Like, are
Sandra?
they, it's really hard, because, well, Sandra is like very analytical. I found with her that if like she comes across all good, but if you say like, hey, I noticed something, she's extremely receptive to it. Like, I think she just always wants to be the good girl. But I think with like clients like Lex, it's like, again, that self-fulfilled prophecy thing. Like, she doesn't want to be like, she thinks she's going to be a letdown. She's almost assuming she's a letdown
Mhm.
already. So sometimes you get those glimmers of like, wow, I'm not a piece of shit. And those actually like, that could be all the value. Like that could be what's the word I'm looking for? An invaluable service to them, because it's the first time in their life they've had someone be like, no, you don't have to set the bar down there and stay there. Like,
Yeah.
you can be up here. Like, what do you? And that alone, even if they're harder to get regularly booked on calls and stuff, just having that presence of someone who doesn't think they're a piece of shit and doomed is like, we could be the first ones in their lives that feel like that or treat them that way. And then
Yeah.
that's where it starts to grow. So I love that she was like excited to hop on the phone, because and I believe Lexa is they, them, I'm pretty sure.
I think when she did her application, see, and this is where it gets hard for me, because she put both she, her, they, them.
Yep. My sibling is the same way, and it's very fuzzy because I'm like, which is which? Like, when do I use which? So
Yeah.
literally with anybody who mentions anything, I stick with they. Like, I try to, at least. Like, when I'm talking to them, like I try to stay as neutral, just because
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I won't screw up that way. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone, but I don't understand it because I'm very much a she, so it's like, I just try to default, even with people I don't even know, I default to they, them now, because I'm just like, until they correct me and refer to themselves like she or her or whatever, like I basically just try to take their lead and stay neutral until they give me a lead to follow. But
Yeah.
Lex has mentioned before that they're non-binary. I just don't know what pronoun to use for them, so I always
Okay.
just say them.
Okay.
But I feel like Lex is going to have a lot of growth. I'm really
I
excited.
think
Like,
so.
rarely does somebody try to bolt from the program and then eagerly try to come back and be like, no, I need this. Like, I'm in a better place now. Like, let's do this. So I'm proud. I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
in the child development world or child psychology world, we call it like the bad kid syndrome. So, if a child hears over and over and over enough time, and maybe not even hears that you're a bad kid, but like, why do you always have to be a troublemaker? Why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do that? Over time, and then the environment isn't set up for them to succeed in an appropriate way, right? So like, when I'm talking to my staff about child progress and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, let's create like some kind of progress chart. I'm like, okay, but you can't make the goals unreachable, because they have to be small and they have to be quick, like baby steps, so that they
Mhm.
get that boost of dopamine and serotonin and they want to keep going. So a lot of times children that are struggling, and after a while they're just like, well, this is just who I'm always going to be, they internalize that and they own it, and they tend
Mhm.
to be clients for us that are just like, well, this is just how I am. I've been this way for a long time, I'll always be this way. So it's just like it took them years to inherit kind of that bad kid syndrome. They now have to take a while to hear from us like that's not necessarily the case. And sometimes even pointing that out to them, like, hey, as a kid, did you often get these kind of comments? Did you often feel like you were never enough and stuff like that? And when they realize that connection, they're like, oh, like this isn't your dialogue. This is the dialogue of other people that have put it on you.
Yep.
So that's
And
sometimes
it's
helps them make
huge.
that connection.
And also, I think that the big thing there is just as much as we see a lot of scapegoat kids, we see a lot of golden kids, like golden children. And I think that it's sometimes even harder to escape that bad kid syndrome. Oh, we got 2 Sophies.
Like, what's happening?
I'll take all the Sophies.
My phone is really bad. I can barely hear, so I'm just slowly
I'm
getting there.
sorry.
So I am listening, but
No
I'll
problem.
be fully there in a sec.
No problem.
Weird.
But like the golden child syndrome is really hard because it's almost on the flip side of that. If somebody gives you like tells you like you're a good kid if you do this, you're a good kid if you do this, make sure you keep doing this because then you'll stay in our good graces and you'll always be the one that isn't in trouble, isn't the fuck up, isn't the disappointment. That also creates a lot of anxiety maintaining that, and then maintaining that in a society where you're not the golden child to other people, so you almost don't know where to even like what they think of you, or if you're doing good or if you're doing bad or whatever. So it's like sometimes I find that golden children develop that like bad kid syndrome like later on in life because everything they've been told that's made them a good kid is things that they're learning in life now doesn't suit them, so they're like kind of like, what do I do? Do you guys notice that either with yourselves or with clients or anything like that? The 2 sides, scapegoat and the golden child, same thing, different application.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had both of it with myself.
Growing up, you were both.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was really difficult because I always felt like the scapegoat of everything. And then my little sister saw me as the golden child and that she was always being compared to me, but I see myself as always being compared to her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sometimes
weird.
parents don't even have like, they'll unintentionally, sometimes intentionally, but a lot of times unintentionally pit the kids against each other in a way, because they're always vying for that number 1 spot. They're always vying for the one that gets the approval, the one that didn't mess up. Like I don't want to be like my sister's doing really well in their eyes and here I am garbage, or vice versa. So it can, and oftentimes the scapegoat child believes the other one is the golden child and the golden child believes the other one's the golden child. Like they usually will think the opposite because both kids in their own way have faced the extreme structure and pressure put on them by their parents. It's just like different application. It's one is kind of using negative reinforcement and one's kind of using positive reinforcement, but it's still for ultimately the thing that it's reinforcing is control, or not allowing that child to express themselves, have flaws, make mistakes, things like that. And as an adult, the pressure comes so high because as a kid, you make a mistake, what's the worst that's going to happen? Your parents going to be mad at you. But as an adult, if you make some mistakes, it's like the stakes are so much higher. Like you could lose a job, you could lose a relationship, you could lose a home, like it's so much scarier to then feel like, well, I got to navigate this by myself. Like, I hope I don't mess up. I think with dieting, that comes out a lot. Like when you try to change people's food is where you start to really see like where they're afraid to be the bad kid. Do you guys have any clients who every time you talk, it's like you're trying not to make them feel bad for not doing what it is you told them to do, but like if they just started doing what you were told them to do, like their life would be so much easier. But it's kind of like, why do we have the same conversation every time we hop on the phone as if I didn't tell them what the problem was last time?
Yeah.
What do you guys notice with those clients? And like, or if you want to use one as an example, like who comes to mind?
Becky.
What about you, Evie?
I don't have any, right. So Kennedy, when I was working with Kennedy in the beginning, that was a lot of it. I know you spoke with her and saw the change in her. And I think even towards the end, there was still a lot of change, but there was things that she still wasn't, I don't want to say she wasn't getting, like, it took longer to apply it. And sometimes it could take longer because she herself is like neurodivergent and She's in a situation, like an environment that's very stressful. But I often found myself kind of repeating things over and over to her, but I kept having to remind myself, like, I even tell it to the teachers at schools, like, adults are really no different from children. So the same strategies we would use for children, we should use as adults, because it's like you have to sometimes say things over and over, maybe in different ways or in different delivery methods until it hits, but it's really not going to sink in until they learn how to apply it in the worst of times, if that makes sense. So, like, I
Yeah.
had a call with Andrea today, and she was saying, because she works for like marketing for the Food Network. So they have this like huge food festival in Miami this week. And she's like so happy it's over. And she, at the end of the call, mind you, she's been doing well. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't given her a lot of baby steps because of the situation she's in. The last few weeks, she's been working like 12-hour days, every 5 days a week, sometimes 6. So, so at the end of the call, she's like, I'm just so happy it's the end. Now I can finally like really commit to this and dive in. And I told her, I was like, actually, you know what? You've learned more in this time than when this stops, because you've had to learn how to apply certain things in the hardest of times. It's easy to apply it in the easy times. And she's like, oh yeah, I guess. No, thanks for saying that. But I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't, like, this is when you need to learn how to apply it. And you're not
That's the
going to have
number one thing I see where I'm just like, why are you waiting for some like easygoing, smooth time in your life? Like, do your health issues wait for that? Or like, why would you only want to learn how to apply the things that help when life is smooth? Because like, how often is that? Like
Right.
when you would want that consistency no matter what's going on. So yeah, it's like a crash course, that's awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of, if you even think about when our illnesses manifested, like my colitis came on during a difficult time because I was in high stress time. It didn't come on when everything was sunshine and rainbows. It was
Yeah.
because I was in stress moments. So we have to then learn how to manage our symptoms in those moments. And I think for some clients, they think that managing means I'm doing it perfectly. And I like, no, that's not the case. I've had to remind myself that too. That's not the case.
Yeah.
It's going to change based on the circumstances. And like, with who was it that I was talking to? Oh, Emily. God, I love her.
too.
We've had to revisit some old baby steps, but tweak them. And she at first was a little disappointed, but then I was like, it just means that now your circumstances are different. So you still have to apply it, but now we have to tweak it based on what's going on. Doesn't
Right.
mean that you've taken a
And
step
you'll
back.
see that a lot with KGG, like, because they
Yeah.
go into KGG thinking like, well, if I've been doing this, then I should know what's up. Like, why do I have to revisit these things? Like, I did it before. Why can't I do it now? Well, it's the same thing as like, okay, were you really gung-ho about Weight Watchers or keto or some other diet? And then when you stop that, the idea of going back to it felt impossible. Same kind of concept. It just means that that baby step wasn't broken down enough at that point, or the circumstances around her have changed. So the application of that baby step has to be different. And it's a good thing because I always tell my clients, I'm like, I want my clients to quote unquote suffer. And not because I want them to go through shit, but I want them to have the experience that they need to know how to take care of themselves in this situation. And sometimes you can't prepare for that. Like, you can't teach someone about that ahead of time to be like, hey, if this comes up, this might happen. It has to kind of be when that comes up that's the perfect time to go over those things again. So to them, it might seem like going backwards, but it's not. It's like going in and really honing in on something is never going backwards. That's just re-solidifying that thing as more realistic to them, is if they have a bunch of different ways to apply it. Which is, yeah, it's good that Emily voices those concerns. I texted with her I think it was like a week ago, and I was just like, I forgot the example I used, but I was basically like, someone who's a violinist, they don't do one song one time, nail it, and then never have to play that song again. But if they ever do, they play it perfect. Like if someone wants to learn how to play the violin, like, how awful they're going to sound for a while? Like, it's going to sound like there's cats dying in that house for a bit before they ever learn how to play a sonata, and then when they learn how to play that sonata, they're going to have to play it again and again. Someone doesn't go up for their recital with no practice. And practice is repetition. It's not something new over and over and over again. It's the same shit over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. And I think that's the big thing we see in KGG is kind of like, they were okay with it not happening overnight in CCA. And then now they're in a second program and they're like, okay, I'm okay with it not happening overnight, but is this going to happen at all? I clearly can't get this right. I have to go back again. But no, it just means it's going to be solidified. They have these illnesses for the rest of their lives. You know, even taking a year to focus on one thing that they never have to think about again is going to be beneficial to them in the long run.
So it reminds me, so I had 2 calls the other night back to back, Coralie and Emily, and they both ended up going the same way. It was so interesting. I always feel like, I don't know about you guys, I feel like there's certain weeks where there's a theme in the conversations, but
That's why I do
so,
the Zooms like that. I'm like, whatever we
yeah.
hear a lot of, and they always, it's like how people's periods get in sync. It's like they're
Yeah.
get in sync, you know?
So the conversation with Coralie started because her baby step, and we kind of didn't say it was a baby step. It was more of like a homework assignment. I told her because she has a lot of anxiety around cooking, and you know she's struggling with when she started, she was eating pretty much what we would recommend, but there are certain things we can tweak that we probably don't realize is really detrimental to her hormones. So, you know, because of the anxiety around the kitchen, I said, here's the thing that Michelle told me, and then my nutritionist told my daughter: just get around food more often, watch the Food Network, be in the kitchen more, try different things. So I was like, just explore that. Like, just get around food more often, because you're going to have more anxiety around the things you don't have more experience with. So the following week, which was this past week, she's like, I'm not doing, this is hard for me, because my mind immediately goes to, well, what am I making? How is it going to look? How is it going to taste? I need to know the end result. So
she got a perfect coach.
Yeah, so where I
lucked out.
yeah, so I said, you're talking to a perfectionist here, but so I told her, I said, well, let me ask you a question. And the more we started talking, she's like, I don't know why I keep thinking about an experience I had in 3rd grade. It's going to sound so dumb. And I told her, I was like, there's nothing you could say that sounds dumb. So she said in 3rd grade, she got an activity where they had to like make these little these like stuffed animals. And she already was struggling with like she wanted things a certain way, and you know, so that was already hard for her to tackle something, and she had to follow multiple steps, and she struggled with that in school. So she said it got to a point where everybody else was finished and she was still working on hers, that the teacher had her mother come to the classroom to sit with her in 3rd grade to finish this stuffed animal. She said she was mortified. I was like, of course, because you're a 3rd grader. You feel you want to fit in. Here's your mother sitting with you to finish the stuffed animal. So she said, as an adult, then she went to this paint and sip, and same kind of thing, multiple steps. Everybody's doing it. Hers isn't looking the right way. And she literally had a panic attack at this paint and sip. So I said, so I'm seeing a pattern here. You either want so much control of knowing how it's going to come out, and if you can't, then you don't want to do it at all. And what you've been taught is to focus on the result or the product versus the process. So I started talking to her about my experience in education and the whole school of thought around process art versus product art. And I started talking to her about, like, you know, at a young age, you were taught, put this here, put that there, glue this here, make it all look the same. Where in cooking and art is creativity, which means you don't know how it's going to look. It's the process of it. So I actually told her homework assignment this week. I sent her some process art activities. I was like, I want you to be a kid and just focus on the process. Like, she's like, wait, but what am I supposed to create? No, there's no result. You're just focusing on the process of using the materials. Second call, Emily started talking about the result, I just want to get to the end. I want to get and we focused on the process. So it was like a lot of the talk that I see in a lot of clients that are struggling is and I see it in education and the way we're taught. I feel like so many of us struggle because we've been taught, do this and you'll get this. There's no this at the end.
Yeah.
There's no way to know. So
there's no bottom of the pile,
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good point that you're making too, because I didn't even realize this, but I don't think about a final goal or destination. And I haven't since the beginning. That's what helped me get to the point that I'm at now. Is I said to myself, I've been trying to chase this amazing place that I'm going to end up where I don't have to think about what I'm eating anymore. And suddenly I'm not going to have these issues. And what I realized, what I was chasing was a cure. And this stuff is incurable. If we don't continue it, it comes back. It's always going to be there. It's happened to me. It's come back, it's taken a lot. So for me, I remove the pressure of, and I know it's easy for you to say, you're not struggling with your weight anymore. And it's maintained and stuff, but it's like, I have to keep on top of my own stuff every day. My goal is today, with what my body has given me and how it's feeling. Because again, it could be the weather, it could be stress that you can't avoid. It could be something happened, like, you know, your furnace broke and you didn't get good sleep. Like there's tons of things that can happen that are going to cause hormonal side effects and symptoms. But for me, I just wake up that day and I'm like, how do I make today feel okay? Like, how do I do what I got to do for myself today to like feel my best with what I've been given? And doing that enough days in a row without the need to be so rigid in like, if I don't maintain this every single day, I'm screwed. I literally just take the day at face value and try to make it the best. Enough of that in a row gets you somewhere. And again, you guys have seen it with me. Like last week, someone messaged me and was like, you know, for a health coach, you seem like you're sick an awful lot. And I'm like, I got 13 different chronic illnesses. Do you understand how sick I could be? That, you know, like I will take the few days where I'm laid out any day compared to the way it was. I used to be in the hospital 6-7 times a winter. You know, like I used to not be able to do much at all. Like you know, and those things have changed, not through hard work. My hard work has been in through the patience of allowing myself to not be perfect every single day, to know that like, yeah, I could care about a 6-pack, but like, I really don't. I really don't, you know, like it's not going to improve my health or my life in any way. If anything, it'll just be some impossible pipe dream to chase that's going to make me feel like crap. So really for me, it's just like, my body will look different throughout my life. I know that I'm going to have seasons where my skin is affected. I'm going to have seasons where my hair is affected. Like every winter, maybe I should post about this more, but like you'll notice in the summertime, like I have a ton more hair right here in the summer. It's just the way it is. I lost a shit ton. I went to this is like a newer stylist that I've been going to probably like since she did my orange hair. So not that long ago, like end of summer. This is the first cycle that she's seen me go through. And the other day I went to her and I sent her a chair and she's like, oh my God, what happened? And I was like, okay, just so you know, I have a thyroid disease. So in the wintertime, I lose a lot of hair here. I was like, I love you. I know your meaning, but please don't ever look at my hair and tell me what happened, because I go back to the time where I was literally almost bald, and like, it's terrifying. She's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I'm like, no, just letting you know, like, you know, to be more aware, because people take that for granted, you know? But my point is, I know that these ebbs and flows are going to happen. I used to start to worry and be like, it was too good to be true. See, here we go again, back again. And I realized like I was creating that. It's not back again. It's never left. Sometimes are going to be easier to maintain than others. And like, that's not, you know, we're all human. If I'm going to waste my life trying to never have side effects or symptoms, I'm going to be wasting my life, you know, versus taking it on the chin for the times that are rougher and being like, now I have a lot more life that I live between, but I cannot help that those things still pop up. I think maybe that's something we should focus on with the clients. Like there is no end cure destination that you're going to get to where you're not going to have, you know, you're not going to have to worry about like that croissant affecting you for 2 weeks. Like I wish there was an answer. You know, anyone who tells you that they can heal your stuff like that is just trying to take your money, you know, but, do you think that would be helpful for clients to tell them like, hey, you're never going to be cured. You're always going to have these issues.
I think
it's not
so.
about that.
Yeah, because I have like two thoughts. So this morning on one of these colitis Facebook pages that at this point I'm like ready to not be a part of, somebody was like, oh, everybody, I healed my colitis with, you know, all of these like natural, and I was just like, you didn't heal it, you're managing it. Can we talk about how you're managing it? Because
Right.
like
It's a relapse remit illness.
Right. It drives me
Yeah.
mad because then people are like, oh, great. Can you tell me what to do? Like, you know, which great. Yeah, we want to know those steps, but please understand those steps isn't just like do it with this one time and then it's gone. When somebody with a chronic illness is not seeing as many symptoms, it means you're doing things daily to manage it. You didn't just do one thing one time. You didn't take a shot. You didn't take a pill. You didn't eat a certain food. You didn't do a certain cleanse.
It's not a gummy vitamin that you bought online from some influencer with a promo code.
Exactly. And I think, you know, for some clients, that's sometimes the mindset, and it's not their fault. That's what they've been taught to believe is like, there's something out there that's going to get rid of this. It is a chronic illness. You're going to have it for the rest of your life. That's why it's incurable. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy life. It just means that we're going to have to find ways to manage it. And there's going to be times where it's more manageable than others. It makes me think too. So when I talked to Emily about that conversation, she was like, oh my God, can you do one of those activities at the next retreat? Because I actually have to text her to see how how it went, because she said she was going to try one of the activities I told her, because she said if we put ourselves in a simpler state of the process, where like artwork, it makes the process of managing health seem a little bit easier because we're constantly putting ourselves in that state of mind of, I'm not worried about the result. I'm not worried about the result, process, right? So I told her, like, take some paint, put on some music, pretend the brush is the dancer. How would it move on the page?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so I did that with the kids. Or take some things that roll, that have different textures, put them in a shoebox with paper, put some paint, let it roll around. Like, you're not
That's really
creating,
cool.
it's just the process of it. So I think for clients, challenging them to do other activities that focus more on the process, put them in that state of mind to know what it feels like, so that when we say, hey, we need you to trust the process, there is no end game, this is everyday reoccurring, it seems a little bit less daunting, maybe.
Yeah. I love that. I think, honestly, like, now I realize, I think maybe that's why a lot of people were nervous about drawing on their tumblers, because they were probably like, what's this going to look like? What if it comes out like
Yeah.
crap and my tumbler looks terrible at the end of it and I can't take the paint off, that makes a lot of sense. We should totally do that at the next retreat. I was actually talking to Jamie about the retreats and stuff. So it's really exciting. We're going to do California this year, and then the next one's going to be probably in like the Vermont area. And then, or I was even thinking out in the UK. So for fall
Nice.
type. But and then next springish, we're gonna go down to New Orleans, and Jamie's gonna take us around. We're gonna do like swamp tours and crawfish. She's gonna have like her family host like a whole crawfish boil, which I've always wanted to go to one so bad. Like an official crawfish boil. I've always wanted to go to one. So really exciting. But yeah, no, we should definitely, I feel like I want to offer more resources to the clients and stuff. Like, I would love to do like a creative Zoom time. I would love to get like a CCA business coaching Zoom every week, just trying to get everything all situated where I can commit to those and like keep up with them. But if you guys ever wanted to do, like, maybe we can come up with like a coach, like all of us lead a Zoom that's just based on like the process, not like doing a creative Zoom, but like, hey, we're just gonna like fuck around with stuff today, and just have fun. I feel like that could be really low key. Like, I could do that from the couch no matter how I'm feeling. And it's not like I have to teach something, that could be a good one to start with. That's kind of low commitment.
Yeah, I think so.
I know
that. Both Corley and Emily were really interested in that. And I sent them, so one of the things I did with the staff was like a washi tape activity. So I sent them kind of what they learned from that process, and like it was really, because washi tape isn't permanent. And actually, God, who was it? Not Margaret. Oh my God, I can't remember her name now. Bridget. Bridget went to New Orleans recently and said she went into like a shop where like the shop owners had all these, she didn't realize what it was, but like loose parts, right? So like all these recycled little tchotchkes that like would have taken years to collect and organize. And the shopkeeper was like, hey, welcome, here's a little tote, walk around and just pick things that you want. And she immediately is like, okay, but what are we creating? He was like, we don't know, just pick out what you'd like to use and explore. So they were like, think about your senses, what feels good, what looks good, what sounds good, what maybe has a certain scent to it. So then once she collected all the items, they gave her a canvas with no glue, and they were like, rearrange it on the canvas, and they would come around and take pictures as it evolved. And at the end, all right, great, put everything back. And she said at first she had some anxiety, but then she was like, I love the fact that it wasn't permanent, because in the process, I wasn't focusing about where am I going to put this in my house? What do I want it to look like? She was just focused on like, oh, I like how this looks. I like how this feels. I like how this reflects in the light. Like, if she was more, she took more risks and explored more. So
I think everyone's capable of being creative. Honestly,
Mhm.
I think that it's the reason it makes such a good psychological like exercise is because you really start to see the holdbacks of why someone doesn't feel creative. And a lot of times like that is so deeply rooted. It's like, I really do believe like we are all capable of being creative. It's just the parameters of like embarrassment or worry on, the result is the only reason why people feel blocked. And they're like, what's the point of creating if it's going to be crap? But that's why they've never practiced creating to understand like their like depth of the ability to create, because it's that holdback. So I love that. We'll definitely make that a thing. So what have you noticed from the talk, from everything we've been talking about with your clients? Anything coming up for you as what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, something you noticed too. I cannot think of the word.
Yeah, this week has been what you guys were talking about. earlier the kind of city versus country driving thing where
Mhm.
when you're under stress, they just kind of struggle to cope with how to do things. So that's been a lot of the clients this week for me. Danny reached out, which was good. It's the first time she's actually reached out that way before, so that was really good. And she said she learned a lot from the way we spoke about stuff, so that was good.
Yay. I'm gonna
Um,
praise her for reaching out right now.
yeah, because she was away from home and she was like, not necessarily comfortable, and she feels that she's a very big people pleaser. So especially with her mum. So I said, today you're
Mhm.
going to tell your mum you don't have time to go and see her. And she was really terrified to do it, but she did it, and her mum was
Yay.
fine. So I think she learnt there that the expectations she has on herself are a lot more than that people have of her. So that was a big learning curve for her this week, which was really cool.
I love that.
Yasmin's gone a bit AWOL, but I'm trying to reel her in.
I texted with Yasmin the other day, and she said that she has been, hold on, I'm gonna send her a voice note. Because I asked her to book a call. Hey, first of all, book a call with me. Second of all, how you feeling? How you doing? You're not, holding up again, are you? Don't isolate. If you need anything, you let us know, okay? I had the same conversation with her. Like, the last time we talked, I was like, "Are you just pushing away because you're going through stuff? Like, that's literally what you're paying us for." Like, she was like, "I know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do this." I'm like, "We do. It's okay."
She did kind of forewarn me that that's what she does. Maybe when our first like conversation was her saying, "I'm going to run away at some point." So
She is
I've been
classic, like tries to push you away just because she's afraid of failure, afraid of letting people down, afraid of being disappointed. Like I think I did her unpacking the boxes call, and I was just like, this is what you're like. I knew it. I knew we're gonna have to reach out to her to. I can't. What is the way hers goes? It's like she sets herself up to be disappointed by people, but expecting it, if that makes sense. She's a total sabotager, but it's not her fault. Her upbringing was interesting, to say
yeah.
the least.
Yeah.
Mhm. So you're doing great
Who
with
else?
them.
Yeah, Anna's learning to say no to people at the moment. That's her homework, boundaries with co-workers and such, which is going really good.
How is it for you guys as coaches? And so if you can start, you can answer first, but how is it with you noticing like that's the thing they have to work on with all of these very like clinical hormonal things and food and blood tests and all of that, that a lot of these clients, their toxicity, quote unquote, is coming in from lack of boundaries. Was that surprising for you to find that like that's an actual thing that hurts people?
It definitely was for me. I think the mindset of this course it has been what's been the most life-changing thing for me, regardless of whether I'm sticking to my baby steps or not. It's the mindset behind, even if I'm not going to die. You know what I mean? That kind of, not being
Yeah.
so hard on myself kind of thing. And yeah, I think people being hard on themselves comes from the expectation that they think others have on them, but it's actually them just putting pressure on themselves. That's what I've noticed a
Right.
lot from the clients well, not this week, just generally, I suppose.
And then you add weight, which is like the physical representation of how people are feeling about themselves. It's like that's why they want to get rid of it the fastest, is because it's like, yeah, hey, even if I'm suffering with all this stuff, but other people can't know it because I don't look like I'm someone who's having issues. Like it's like they want the autonomy. They want to be able to be like anonymous in their health struggles, and they feel like the weight is like wearing their illness in a way, and it invites people's perception of them into the picture and everything, when really it's like this is all mindset based, because if you could overcome that, then what really holds us back? Like if we're not worried at all about what other people think, we're focused on ourselves, that's a huge roadblock. But that's not easy to remove when that's been instilled in people since they were babies, you know but boundaries, saying no to people, it's like, especially if you're in a sick body, you feel like you need to give more, and that's like you're working with less to be able to give when you're ill. you know, so it kind of sets them up for failure. That's why boundaries usually, as soon as people start putting them in, they start feeling better and they're like, how did this happen? I haven't changed food all that much. And it's like, this is a control center. Everything starts up top.
Yeah, and there's also maybe the other side of that where they're aware of people's perceptions of them being perhaps fat, and so therefore they're lazy. And so you're trying it harder and harder because you don't want people to ever think that you're what they think you are.
Right. Well, I think maybe we should do it with the clients. Maybe we should focus on normalizing the word fat. You know, I noticed I was watching Floribama Shore the other day. I find like the weirdest life lessons in these shows, like Naked and Afraid and Floribama Shore is like where I'm finding this stuff from. But in it, one of the characters has gained weight from the season prior, and she was talking to like some guy who is a personal trainer, and she was like, oh, I'm probably so fat compared to your clients that you see. And he was like, well, I don't think fat is a very good word. I don't think that's a nice word. And I wanted to like jump through the screen and like I know what you're saying, I know you're trying to be nice, but like that's the reason why this is so bad. Because it's like, if you think about it, like, what does it mean to be fat? Oh my God, it's terrible. It's horrible. It's earth shattering. Why? Because automatically your health is in the toilet, or because of what people perceive fat to be. And like that continues to keep people just hating themselves based on their weight, regardless of all the facts that are beneath it, you know, regardless of how happy they are, how healthy they actually could be. I posted a story that there's lots of top athletes who are, their BMI puts them at like morbidly obese, but like power lifters, you know, like I don't know positions, but like people who play football, American football, who are like, you know, built like a brick wall and they're supposed to pummel into people, you know, like they're not supposed to be these lean little things, you know. And it's just like, why are we allowed to pick and choose what's healthy, what's not healthy? And it all stems to the stigma of the word fat. And I personally, oh my God, like the worst insult could be like, oh my God, are you getting fat? Like, you know, I can knock you off your chair. But why? And men don't feel that way when they're called fat. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are some that feel that way, but like, it's just not as socially stigmatized, you know, like it's not, you don't see a fit and trim guy, well, a fit and trim girl with like an quote unquote overweight man, and people be like, oh God, look at that slob. Like he doesn't even care about himself. He doesn't even take care of himself. What do people say? He must be rich. His, you know, peach must be huge. You know, like he probably treats her really well, like all that, you know, people look at it different. But if you were to have a very overweight woman with a very, very fit man, people react really, really funny to that. And
yeah, there's actually, sorry,
bullshit.
there's what's the account? There's an influencer I follow. So he's like really in shape, really handsome guy.
I've
And
seen that. I know exactly
yeah.
what couple
who
you're
you're
talking
talking about.
about.
God, the comments that they get, I'm like, oh my God, it's so
Or how about Pierce
unbelievable that he
Brosnan?
would be attracted to her. She's a beautiful girl, and she's very like, you could tell she's just so happy, and she's like got great personality. But the fact that she's heavier than him, and he goes to the gym and has like a six pack, and you know, like the comments are just horrendous. I was like, oh my God. So all the girls that have that kind of body type think I'm never like, to look at all these comments
Yeah.
of what people are saying.
And they could be completely healthy. They could be completely healthy. Some people's bodies are just set up like that, and yet they put themselves on what, a hamster wheel of dieting and trying to be thin for what? It's not for health at that point. It's so strangers could be attracted to you, honestly. And it's the same thing with doctors, like the fat shaming ultimately all boils down to attraction. It all boils down to what people perceive you to be as a female. And it's
if
messed up.
Jay-Z can cheat on Beyonce, one of the most beautiful women in a way, it's
Or
not
Machine Gun
looks.
Kelly with friggin' Megan Fox.
Oh,
Like,
don't even
it's
get me
not looks,
started.
people.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's just messed up. It's all rooted in misogyny. Pierce Brosnan and his wife, like that pisses me off so badly
yeah.
when it's like no one's even talking about the weight. They aren't talking about the weight. They're having fun together, shopping on a beach, whatever. They've been together for decades, which is a lot longer than even non-famous couples can say a lot of times. And yet people have to make it about that. And if you don't, you're promoting obesity. And that pisses me off. That is only people who think that the only reason people could be overweight is if they sit around eating French fries and chocolate all day long, you know. And like because then it's like no one's saying that that's okay. No one is saying like glorify somebody being, like the people on those shows, like My 500-Pound Life, they have mental disorders that have them in that way. You don't get to that point in life without it being mental illness, like, and they deserve empathy still, like, and it drives me nuts that people assume that if you don't condemn anyone who's not thin, that you're telling them it's okay to go ruin your life, eat yourself into a grave, as if that's the only reason why anybody is not a size 2. And it's just always rooted and directed towards women. It pisses me off. So
And the
okay.
place of coming from that they lack discipline too. Like it's not always a discipline problem. Like so it really is. If it's deeply rooted, we see it with our clients. How many of us get into conversations that have nothing to do with food, but ends up impacting the choices they make around food because we talked about the actual problem, which was either childhood trauma or mindset and stuff like that. So the food is just the end result. That is not what is causing the issue.
And the dieting, like Minnesota Starvation Experiment proved, you give people binge eating disorder by restricting calories, by creating diets, by forcing them to, change this very normal biological response to eat, trying to manage their appetite, things like that. You set people up for mental disorders like binge eating disorder. It's been proven since the 40s, and just people don't choose to listen. CCA literally, like what we do and the clients that get results is, what do we teach them? We teach them, don't be mean to yourself, find alternatives for things that hurt you physically, but don't stop yourself from wanting to eat. We basically teach them how to take care of themselves. And if anything, we remove a lot of the rules, a lot of the thoughts, a lot of the strictness, and they still have a hard time. And that's because it's rooted in a lot more than just food and discipline. So, okay, I really love today's chat. I think I want to focus more on, I got my stomach, ow. I want to focus more on us trying to find ways to kind of normalize the term fat. I know that sounds crazy, but just because, like, why should people feel miserable about themselves? Like, it's ridiculous. I would like to think about doing like a creative Zoom if we can schedule it.
Yeah. I'm
excited to talk on our one-on-ones more about the clients in depth. And Molly came up with the, oh my God, my stomach, I'm so sorry. Ow. Molly came up with the newsletter graphic for us. So I'm going to send you guys the official like newsletter thing so we can start thinking about how to do that. Jamie has also, I had a call with our graduation call for KGG2 today. She's dealing with some financial issues and stuff, but agreed. She's like, if I could barter like work and like pay like half and half to be able to do another program, like she would be down to do that. So I'm thinking I'm going to get Jamie in more of like an assistant role to help us. So like we can send the newsletter stuff to her and then she can put it together and send it out or something, where it's like, she can take some of the load off of our backs in terms of like the step-by-step like execution of stuff. I think that'll be really exciting. So I'll keep you posted on what we discuss and how she'll be officially helping us and stuff. But if you guys have any questions stemming from this or any issues that like maybe this brought up for you guys specifically, like in your own stuff you're dealing with, like as always, feel free, message me, text me, and we can work it out. All right. So anything else you guys want to add before we jump? Any questions, anything like that? Okie dokie. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll talk to you guys this week.
All right.
Bye,
Have a good day.
guys.
Have a good one.
Bye.